सभी ड्रिल करो, माइंड ड्रिल। कर्मेंद्रियों की ड्रिल नहीं, मन की ड्रिल करो। रेडी? देखो, सबसे श्रेष्ठ से श्रेष्ठ चित्र होता है ताज, तख्त, तिलकधारी का। तो अपना चित्र सामने लाओ और सब संकल्प किनारे कर। देखो, आप सभी बाप दादा के दिल तख्त नशीन है।
So, good afternoon, warm welcome. I hope you can hear well and translation is working. So, yesterday we were looking at the sovereign and who and what is ruling the mind. And if it's ego, then we need to change the regime. But regime change doesn't happen without some resistance. So, there was useful exploration on this. And whatever you've been reflecting on will be nice to hear. We're going to be joined later by Brother Ken, who's based in Brazil, in the last part of this session, and we'll share some details about the next advanced retreat in February at the end. So welcome back and welcome to Prashant.
Hello and good afternoon. Today we already had the snow, so you missed it. But there is a forecast. We will show you the snow later. Also, I presume you know um, the video that was shown just now, and it was described in the earlier sessions, not this retreat, but in the earlier retreats. The phenomena that happens in India. This is Mount Abu in India, and the teachings of Raj Yoga, we receive them through the medium of Dadi Gulzar. So the body that you see there, the face is of the sister, we call her Dadi Gulzar, but her body is used, and it is a divine incarnation that happens. And what you are seeing actually is that time when the body is used. Uh, it is as a reincarnation of the Supreme Soul avatar, and the words are spoken. And during that time, the sound is of the different whisper-like sound, subtle. So it is a great opportunity. We might be able to show this again towards the end. And looking into the eyes, that is like the best thing we can do. It is like a communication, soul to soul communication through the eyes. And the various ideas we have discussed here, the source of these ideas is the same. 100% of these ideas, they come from Baba, and Baba is using that body to speak to us. So that's excellent. Let us create few more minutes for experience. And it was nicely mentioned, self-sovereign. And one who is to become sovereign, he has to be conscious first. Our situation is this: the soul is not even conscious. So various steps are taken so that the soul becomes conscious. So in a light-hearted, even our practice is light-hearted. We are more having conversation, but at the same time, where something is changing, we are realizing that some consciousness has to shift. For this, when we are using paras, the subtle and alaukic means unearthly, that dimension becomes normal. That is the new thing for Paras. When we are Patthar, everything is so locked at a gross level. So there is no sense of the subtle. And we are stone intellect. So large majority of the world is locked in that gross level. Paras sees that all thing that is gross is just a Cinderella. It is a story, fiction. The real is at the alaukic level. That includes the true self. Everything of ours is at the alaukic level. So this is the big, huge shift of consciousness. Otherwise, we are so caught up in the role, Prashant, it has become I. So in this Paras perspective, there is a temporary story going on down below, no different to camel and elephant drama. And behind this is the real world. And that is subtle, that is alaukic, unearthly, that is eternal, that is invisible, it is divine. And we miss it completely if we remain gross. So this is our first effort to come to the subtle as a fun. We are not running away from gross, but this, when we are awake to the subtle, our big, deep needs are addressed. To start with, we discover the true self, that itself is subtle. That's why the language of soul, invisible traveler. We discover this invisible traveler is immortal. Absolutely beyond harm. And his true family, true father, true home, everything is alaukic. And now he is truly a guest in the gross. He is truly the invisible actor in the world, but he's very relaxed about it. Because he is not a beggar here, never a victim, certainly never a slave. It is this invisible soul who is the invisible guest who can ever be the self-sovereign. He can be the master of his own life, mind, because he's secure and immortal and he needs nothing from this story. He's not pulled here, there, no obsessions. Different personality, noble personality. No one can have a higher quality of life than this. Because the moment you cross the line and go into the stone intellect, then first thing is you are forever a victim. Things can change and things can end and the story takes you up and down. So mindset is of the victim, of the slave, and of the beggar. How can a slave or a beggar have a better quality of life? They can have lots of gold, they can be successful beggars, but it's a beggar. Mindset is of a beggar. Whereas one who is conscious, the soul that is conscious, is self-sovereign. knows worthiness to be loved by God, needs nothing, which means he feels he got everything, needs nothing from the story. Never a beggar, never a slave, never a victim, never, not even the slightest. Story cannot harm anyone. He also knows everyone else is like this. So our big success would be to make this natural. It shouldn't be just during the time of practice, we are there, and then our aim is to make paras strong so that this alokik dimension becomes natural. I'm going to read another few lines from the Murli. So these are Baba's words. And these were spoken 18th of June 71. So I'm reading some older extracts. So, are you able to stabilize yourselves in whatever stage you want, when you want, because you are master knowledgeful. You are also master almighty authorities, souls. Because you are both of those, you can stabilize yourselves in whatever stage you want in less than 1 second. If you are told to become a resident of Paramdham, that is the soul world, at this moment, have you such a practice that as soon as you are told this, you forget the body, you forget the world of this body, and become the resident of Paramdham, Paramdham, supreme home, eternal soul world. Or if you are told to stabilize yourselves in the angelic stage, Avyakta stage now. Or if you are told to come into sound, which is this drama. You come into sound for service. And whilst doing service, to have the awareness of your true form, that is soul, remain soul conscious. Have you developed such a practice? Have you had this practice? Or is it that when you wish to become a resident of Paramdham, instead you come into sound? You want to come into silence, but you come into sound again and again. You are not practicing this, are you? Are you able to stabilize your intellect wherever you want in less than 1 second? Self-sovereign means, you at least be the master of the mind. So Baba gives 1 second. So have you got such practice? Do you consider yourselves to be master, almighty authorities? Since you are the almighty authorities, authority in this case, authority of your own laboratory, are you not able to stabilize the love of your intellect wherever you want? Is this practice difficult or easy? Some insight into what is expected of us. Feel free if you want to say anything or ask anything. We'll be coming to our subject of today. Are there any comments? Or
One comment. What is the difference between the three states and which to aspire to and when?
three states.
That were mentioned.
In the different, three is just a reference. Sound, the subtle region, the soul world. These are three regions. But in essence of this, whatever practice you yourselves want to practice. Say you want to see for 2 minutes, see the guest, experience being a guest. See that it is happening. The mind is in your control. Or you are aiming to see the soul in the home. See what is happening. Be the master of this. So that was that is what was implied.
Is it okay to be lokic in 1 second and a lokic for longer than a second?
It is not longer. It is like how long you stay, it is your choice. But the point is you want to go there now. And does Maya or ego keep you here longer? And then you go there. That is the question. Are you the sovereign or someone else is the sovereign? If you are sovereign, you go there in a second.
Comment, the practice is not easy with the pressures of modern life, and it's the direct opposite in our culture, in our times at the moment.
No, life goes on. Life is a part of the drama. Modern or ancient, that is all different episodes of the drama. Question is how much the invisible soul, invisible traveler is free. That's the question. How much he has created bondage, is he a slave? If an ego is created, ego is a slave. It can be to anything. It doesn't need to be modern. It can be a broken pot, but ego will be a slave to something.
What's the difference between where does the angelic world exist in the big map? That's one question.
Mhm. It is a region, you can call it in between. That is for the time being. We will take it in more detail another time. But the most important for us is experience of soul awareness. More we practice soul awareness, experience the home, other things will follow. That is not a immediate destination.
Thank you. How can one tell that one is actually genuinely experiencing the soul world compared to imagination?
Sure. When it is ego based, the whole range of spiritual experiences, when ego is in the driving seat, it is possible. Ego can also say, I am a soul. Ego can also say, you know, God. All these things exist. Then it will be words and it will be visualization, imagination. That is what it stays at that level. When it is soul based, which means you have gone beyond the ego, soul is conscious. And as for the soul, the whole spiritual experiences are natural, and it becomes an experience. Ego, it is not natural. Ego doesn't even want them in a real sense. Ego is very much based on the story, and ego wants to stay there in the story. Ego is incapable of experiencing beyond the story. So this is the equation. To know that ego is stubborn. Ego will, even though you may be talking about soul, ego will be stubborn. That's why you have to use the method. That's why the language of paras, and that makes the ego shrink. You get chance to go beyond.
Thank you. And, does one go into these realities, experiences when one is sleeping and dreaming?
Possible, but that doesn't bring about transformation within us. The transformation happens only by the conscious process. In other words, yeah, there are methods, hypnosis, there are many things possible through those things. Through drugs, some people can take drugs and some experiences happen. But once that effect is over, you are back to your old state, and the real transformation has not happened. So our aim is to use knowledge and use the conscious process, and then it brings about transformation, and that is stable.
Thank you. Maybe another. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one more, and then we'll take
Regarding the states, does one first experience the angelic state and then go for the divine state, or is it the other way around?
it can be any. All these are cluster different practices. Whichever you feel you you can relate to, understand, like we are talking about invisible traveler. We have spoken about God, we have spoken about home, and sometimes practice as a driver in this body, different practices. I know whichever you feel you you can relate to it today, go for that. And that helps the other practices.
Nice, thank you.
So one subject that is, since our subject is self-sovereign, the big image and that is very poetic is to be the master of the senses. That is like if you are a sovereign, we said there is a, are you in charge of the laboratory? So are you in charge of your senses? So sometimes there is an image shown, one is the king and all these five senses, and you are in charge. And there is a, in bhakti, in scriptures, there is a reference. Some eyes, they deceive you. Eyes want to think or take you somewhere. Sometimes the palate pulls you somewhere. So these are the areas one sees the slavery. But seen from another angle, it is not a physical eyes. It is not some disciplines. They may close the eyes, things like that. In some disciplines, they don't see anybody. They keep curtains. Men don't see women. This kind of a discipline in some places. Some might avoid certain smell. You know that is the kind of life. Some level of restriction is good, but ultimately we need to deal with this, you know, uh, phenomena a little bit, understand it a bit deeper. It is not the eyes that are creating problem, but there is the mind's eye. I can close the eyes, but my mind can continue to see things. My mind can continue to go somewhere. So it is the eye of the mind. And same thing applies to every sense. So we are more interested in finding out who is using the mind. That is where we want to be in charge. And what we are also seeing, I may be seeing some red color. Doesn't mean I'm a slave to it. I may be smelling some of the fragrance. Doesn't mean I'm a slave. But if any of the Ravan's heads are involved, we saw that Ravan has 10 heads. Any of these Ravan's heads are involved, then these heads, they get bigger. They all want to use the mind. So this through the senses, for example, I am smelling something, that information comes to the mind, and this there is a Ravan waiting there for that experience, and that makes Ravan bigger. You remember Ravan? We defined Ravan. I'll quickly come to this subject of Ravan. We all heard this story, and definitely worth revising it again. So, if this is the physical world, and there is a soul, and his home, and soul is the invisible traveler through this. He has his own world. He is temporarily passing through this. That's great. But 10 heads of Ravan, they are locked in this box with different things. One is locked with another person. One is locked with some sugar. He likes some sweets. Another head is locked in some position. But it is all within the box. Ravan is an addict and a beggar. That beggar and slave and victim and addict, it all applies to Ravan. And Ravan is demon, and ultimately it's a demonic. So with different things, it can be, he might say, sing a song, love, 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 but he's absolutely selfish. He's caught in he himself needs it. He can play any game, pretense and manipulation, that anything is possible for Ravan. It is a demonic value structure. Ravan can go at any level. And so, different levels, but there are 10 heads of Ravan locked into this thing. Metaphorically, 10 heads. Ravan has got many more heads. So here we are saying Ravan absolutely wants the mind. If someone feels this mind is racing, creating so many thoughts, it is Ravan wants those thoughts. And Ravan, and more he gets those thoughts, those head thoughts get bigger. And bigger Ravan is a bigger harassment for the mind. Those different heads are fighting amongst themselves for this one mind. A mind is such a thing, you cannot have more than one thought at any moment. At this moment, you can have one thought in the mind. So these 10 heads are competing for this same mind. This is the story of present world. So in such a world, to be self-sovereign, which means the soul suddenly says, okay, I should be self-sovereign here. So I should be using the senses the way I like. I should be eating what I choose, what is good for the body, I should choose. But this head says, no, he doesn't care about the body. He says, I like chutney, so I'm going to eat this, no matter what. This head of Ravan will go for that. And you see that slavery that is coming. You may know what is right and what should be done, but there is a slavery that is not self-sovereign. Another head just wants to think about some waste thoughts because they appear to be waste, but that is a supply, that's a nourishment for that particular head. Am I sort of clear? So language used is be the master of the five senses, but in reality, you are becoming master of Ravan. Senses are still there, same senses will continue, but all that you want is Ravan not be involved. So you can be the master of these five senses if all these heads are removed. Then you are the master. How? How do you do this? This is like we are seeing the psychodynamics, what is going on in our mind. The various things we are doing is for the same purpose. And we are talking of this so that you get a structure to understand what is going on. What is this? Being the master. You might hear sometimes in the Murlis that is spoken of. If you want to have the title self-sovereign, Ravan being there, one cannot be the self-sovereign. Ravan is bully, big Ravan. He will just go for, just like an addict. He may know what is bad and what is wrong, but you know, why he still does something that is terrible. He may be about to die, still he cannot stop doing things because the one head of Ravan, he, he doesn't care for body, he doesn't care for the family, he doesn't care for anyone. Ravan cares for himself. Small head may appear to be not so harmful, but it is still Ravan. It will become big if it is not removed. You want to add anything?
One question: who controls Ravan?
To control Ravan, first the soul has to be conscious. If the soul is not even conscious, no one controls. Ravan is the king. We are talking today self-sovereign. Actually, in the lives of ordinary, the human being, 10 heads of Ravan are the sovereign. They fight amongst themselves, but they are sovereign, and they decide what has to happen with everything, and mind included. So if we want to do anything about this, the only the soul, you know, that's the only other option. Soul is the one who should be the king, because it is his mind and it is his life. But to do this, he has to be conscious. So what we are doing here, using paras, paras favors the soul. So this is a famous image that we have seen so far. And I hope that image is in your main room. This is the big map. This is the Paras perspective. It is drawn like this, intentional, because Paras sees the entire physical world as small in significance. If it is a story cannot be hugely significant. There are many stories. So it is seen small, and the soul is shown with importance. For Paras, that is most significant. We sometimes use the word alpha, beta. In this context, we use the word alpha for the soul, beta for God. These are most important for the one who is conscious. So Paras shines light here, in a big way. This dimension becomes very important. And we used the word just now, alokik, unearthly. This dimension is unearthly. That becomes so important. And once you are seeing this way, the ego shrinks. All these 10 heads of Ravan, instantly, they are kept under control. Game changes. They don't disappear. They are there, but you are changing the environment. Just as if you get a certain weather, you get daffodils. Another weather, you get cactus, you get weeds. Same here. You create a certain environment, it favors the soul. Soul becomes conscious. When the soul realizes he exists, alokik is natural, immortality is normal, and he is from the family of other souls. This the feelings come. Theory, we can read books, but when you are playing with paras, these feelings come. You know the sense of belonging to this home and this family, souls, they belong to it is one family. And and a feeling of worthiness, because the conscious soul is desireless, sorrowless, viceless. The whole game changes, the experiences follow. And that's the great news, because during the seconds you are winning here, it is like at least one battle you have won. 10 seconds, Ravan is not there. Soul is conscious. That is, you are already changing. Even the brain will show the wiring will change inside. Hard wiring will change, will show changes. You create another 1 minute, you create 5 minutes. It is like a game is changing. Sorry, you were saying something?
Yes, is this the answer to the question about when one has detected ahead of Ravan, for example, around food or sugar? What is the next step? Would you say this is the next step?
We have to work on few fronts. Every possible front. Just like in any war, you have to pay attention on all fronts. So this is a very, very precious step, because the king is becoming conscious, and there is a replacement. Any addict will say, if he wants to be free from addiction, he needs a replacement. If you just tell him to stop something, he will go back to it, or he will go back to some other addiction. But you very cleverly, intelligently, create a replacement for him. What he's going to do with time, what he's going to do with his mind, create a replacement, and then he will not go back to that addiction. So here, the only option we all have is Ravan, demon, or the angel. That's the option. Demon may not appear like a demon, but they are like just waste thoughts. Appears waste thoughts, but they are all locked in the story. Different cyclical thoughts, thoughts that you don't want. These are all coming from that one or the other head of Ravan. So the replacement is great soul awareness. It's a huge step, and as a hobby, bring it in as a hobby. But the other fronts means you also need to pay attention that during the week time, Ravan wants to go back to his old habit. You put a restriction that you are not going to cross a certain line, not at all. You put a very firm restriction. We mentioned in our earlier lesson, 3-day program. Stop Ravan all supplies for 3 days. And this kind of, you are working on all fronts. Then there is a success, guaranteed success.
Thank you. I hope that helps. The question earlier, when the soul is conscious, there may be no experience of Ravan. So, has Ravan disappeared? And what is your understanding or experience?
Yeah, Ravan, I won't give the certificate of Ravan has disappeared easily. I won't give it to myself, because that is that's a big achievement if Ravan disappears. then one is ready for golden age. But one is to observe. To Ravan doesn't come with a label Ravan, you know, to be able to spot Ravan's different forms. That discrimination is necessary. Um, Also, Ravan will take the form, a spiritual form. I am so kind, I am so nice, I am soul conscious. Ravan's different heads are ego states. Some that tamopradhan form, Ravan's form of lust, or Ravan's form of some addictions, or greed. Those gross forms might have disappeared, but Ravan can adapt and stay there in some other form. Soul consciousness also is slippery. True soul consciousness is slippery. You may be soul conscious. Soul knowledge is easy. Some 50% of the population in this country, they say that they know there is a soul. So knowledge is there. That we are not achieving a big thing by knowing it, but to be conscious. And that's why the language we use, the invisible traveler, observing the story and knowing that right now Prashant is part of the story. So you're not mixing soul, and all Prashant, it's a drama, everything mixed. No. The soul that is conscious sees his complete independence from the story, sees his complete independence from the role. Ego is very much hiding in the role, what things around the role. Maximum hits of Ravana are around there. So during these seconds, get this right. Invisible traveler, observing his presence, is like a visitor, invisible guest in this physical world, story world. He sees it as so gross. He finds it gross and temporary. Blatantly, it is temporary. Everything, including the role. And understands it is fictional. It is meant for the story. And so knows his complete independence from it. He can't believe that anyone would go into that story and think that something there can be mine or something there can be I. He finds it absurd. He is the observer, happy to observe that gross story. So if this is practiced during those seconds, minutes, you can give the certificate of soul consciousness. But it's slippery, suddenly you will find you are mixing things. Then it is not soul consciousness. Language remains, soul, God, that language remains, but it is all mixed. But no problem, come back to the quality again. It happens to me, it happens to everyone, but we understand that is the Maya's game. But we come back to the quality, come back to the paras, come back to what is accurate.
So there is quite a few questions here. When someone has got a very bad role, for example, murderers, to take an example, and say Ravan is really in charge, how can they ever defeat Ravan?
And Ravan is in charge in everyone, and It is not that murderers will have more difficulty, not necessarily. Ravan is mm, some of these addictions of Ravan can be so stubborn. In no difference between the Ravan of some kind holy person thinks I am so holy and creates a ego around that, and another person is a sort of a leader of a gang, and he creates. There is no difference in Ravan between these two, and they can be really stubborn, the heads of Ravan. But in the if someone has realized that this is Ravan and there is an option of soul, if he has realized this, then the game changes. If someone has not realized this, there is a patthar, stone intellect is really patthar, then uh, then the process is slow. Then nothing can be done. If a person feels I'm absolutely kind and good, he doesn't need anything, then nothing can happen. But someone has realized this is, this has to go. So someone maybe, there are examples, someone like, if you go into internet, you might come across the name Pancham Singh, and he was a bandit, a leader of a gang in India. Um, and they would attack valleys, in some, it is like there are murders and crimes of all kinds. And there was a point he realized he wanted to change, and he changed. And after that change, soon after that, he was connected to our center, and I saw him in Madhubana one time, and I was very surprised. Uh, some months ago, I saw a talk he's giving in one of the places in northern India, about knowledge, and he was a leader of a big gang.
What was his name again?
Pancham Singh.
There's nothing on your screen right now, by the way.
Okay, maybe I can write the name. I might not like to
Someone's
promote
written it
this.
in the chat, actually. We have it written, I think.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's helpful. Is there a good way to use your intellect and talk to your mind and say no if you feel that there is Ravan?
And then just go for soul awareness. There is no need to talk and all this. That is not required. It is a game of a second. The passage that we heard, Baba was saying, you have the great option, and you got an option now. So why do you want to spend time talking?
Nicole's written in the chat to say later to Maya or Ravan.
Yeah.
What other role, other than knowledge, does the Supreme Soul play in supporting the soul in this battle?
So the knowledge is just a small part of it. Even for us, knowledge is necessary, but the big part is powers. We need that help in an invisible way through powers, and that is his main part. Almighty. And this happens if you take one step, then he takes 100 steps. That is the way things happen. It's almost a law, you know. Someone wants to become free. And we said in the past, doctor can tell person, I can do the operation on you and you will be free from this problem. But he still need to give a consent. The patient has to give a consent. Doctor cannot do anything. So also here, the person wants to change. And the sign of this is he takes a step. Then the help comes in a invisible way. And we use the word power for this. It will suddenly becomes so easy. What appeared to be big, difficult becomes easy. You have to take one step. And you definitely want it. Regardless of what happens, you are not going to go back. This kind of you want to be free from Ravan.
Yes, thank you.
This part of Ram, this part of God, is promised, until the transformation, until the end of the confluence age and beginning of the golden age. Invisible part that is going to continue. Ram has commitment to Sita.
What does his role as purifier actually mean?
Making us free from Ravan. That's all. There is no other impurity in the system. As we saw, Ravan is the seed of everything that is unpleasant, anything that you don't like in anyone else. Its origin is one head of Ravan. Some, we said, some behavior, someone is manipulating, someone is stubborn, someone is greedy. There's different things we do not like. And that is 100% Ravan. Whatever you don't like in you, it is 100% Ravan. So if you remove Ravan, what you get is a deity, an angel.
Is it possible to remove the Ravan in others who need help?
You can give Sanjivani to others, but we cannot remove Ravan in others. Uh, but Sanjivani is a big help. You are giving the knowledge and making it clear, but uh, you cannot play the game for someone else. Even God cannot play, as we saw, unless someone wants to win, even God cannot play the game for someone else.
Mm. Yes, thank you. How can someone fight Ravan if they are physically sick or weak?
That is independent. The physical, someone who is physically strong doesn't necessarily mean he's going to even wants to remove Ravan. He will be busy with his tennis or something else. On the contrary, one who is having some physical limitations, it may make him create time for his mind. But it is independent, not connected to the physical world at all. If someone wants, he makes use of all situations. Even pain, he uses it to become free from Ravan. It becomes like a springboard to come out.
Yes, that's quite a vivid example. One comment in the chat, studying hard and gaining diplomas, is that building your ego and feeding Ravan, or is it adding worth to the soul, which may be seen as an inner treasure?
It is certainly not an inner treasure. It is outer treasure, but not necessarily ego either. One can be egoless and still might like to get a certain qualification for doing a certain duty. It is necessary your the country needs a certain skill, you want to get a certain skill, and you may be more useful that way, and the country may benefit, society may benefit. It can come from a different space, but it can also come from ego. But the self-worth improves more we become sovereign, more we become free from the beggar system, more we remove the slave, more we remove the demon, then the self-worth improves.
That's clear. Someone's asking, is playing tennis feeding Ravan? Is it a misuse of the senses? So understanding is it wasn't the point, but it is if you're doing that instead of making effort. Did you want to expand on that?
Body needs a certain exercise also. So as a trustee of the body, you are taking some sport, and that is a good thing. And it is with what reason you are playing, that is the question.
Thank you. Does Ravan go with us to the gate of the golden age?
Ravan cannot. Um, as we saw, Ravan cannot go beyond this box. It is so stubbornly, its origin and its existence is within that box, and an environment of ignorance. That is what is the cause of Ravan. So the moment darkness is removed, if there is light, Ravan cannot exist. It is like that. And beyond this iron-aged world, Ravan cannot exist.
Yes. One more question maybe. Is Maya the vices of Ravan?
In the story we saw, Maya is like the intelligence in Ravan's administration. Ravan is a dumb monster, bit silly monster. He just wants more, 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 can become stubborn. But Maya is the intelligence, cunning. It is Maya who says, "Oh, do it tomorrow," something like this, all sweetness and all. And Maya is the one sends golden deers. Maya is plays that cunning part, and we can see that in ourselves. Someone says, "I'm doing something wrong today," but and, gradually I'm into the process. Gradually I'm changing. After 1 month I will change, but I'm doing it today wrong. As Baba says, we can change in 1 second if you want. But Maya will say, it is a process. Maya is the one who says, I totally agree with it, but I'm not ready. This is the Maya's sort of clever argument, or it is difficult, whatever. Maya has got lawyers working for it. Think of excuses, corporate lawyers. So I think it will be good to keep some questions for Ken. Save difficult questions for Ken.
Yes.
So Ken is joining us sometime soon. And after these rooms, it will be nice to meet Ken, originally from Australia, then in Brazil, but he has been in this country. And also we will hear a song by him also.
So would you like to take a break now?
Yeah.
What would be the reflective question you'd like to suggest for room discussion?
Self-sovereign and being master of the senses. To understand this subject, master of the senses in the broadest sense, what it involves, and how do we achieve it. Today, give yourself very short, just don't let Maya say, we'll do it gradually. How do we experiment with it?
Thank you. So we'll take this opportunity to reflect together, and we'll come back in around 10 or 12 minutes. So enjoy. See you shortly. So very warm welcome back. We'll just take a minute or two to pause before we move on to the next part. So just to reflect on the discussions a bit. So thank you. And I hope you enjoyed the discussions. Feel free to share any realizations or questions. So I'm very happy to be welcoming Brother Ken, who is living in Sao Paulo. So I think it is perhaps just touching afternoon or late morning. He's coordinating the activities of Brahma Kumaris in South America and working in management consultancy. Born in Australia, but learned Spanish, Portuguese, and has written books in these languages and sung songs in more than those three languages. And we will hear a song by Ken at the end. So warm welcome on behalf of the group, and over to you.
Hello, hello Sarah, Om Shanti. Good evening, everyone. I think everyone over there is in the afternoon or evening. I'm seeing names of people from different places. But this topic of self-sovereign, I was just remembering this morning after reading the Moli. In fact, I was very fortunate today because I had to read the Moli to all of the centers in Brazil. But then after that, I had to read the Moli to all of the centers in Florida. So I was able to read the Moli twice. And naturally, I spent, Amrit Bella just pondering over the depth of today's Moli, in which Baba promised more about in relation to depth. He said it was just as the philosophy of karma is deep, so is the philosophy about purity. And I was remembering this morning that I asked Daddy once, Daddy Janky, and this is the connection that I'd make. Because I'm in a situation that normally a sister would be doing, coordinating many different countries. And these days it goes up to Mexico these days. So it's more like Latin America, about 20 countries. And I asked Daddy, what should I do? I'm in a situation, what's the main effort that I have to make in order to make sure that everything is sort of under a natural control rather than, we've seen the type of people who lord it over others. They try to be, a boss or a false type of sovereign. But she told me that the main effort to be, let's say, to coordinate. This is the closest word that we have to governance in the Brahmin dictionary, to coordinate a whole region. She said the main effort is to keep pure. So purity is definitely the basis. Since it was today's morning, and since you're doing this retreat, I'm sure you're making the bridges between what Baba said today and what you've been deliberating on. I mean, we can listen to classes and we can, and these days there's no shortage of classes online. In the Americas, we have the fortune of every single night, and soon Sister Mwini will be celebrating 300 classes of the Avyakti Parivar. She every single night since March, she's been online with the whole region and many places in the world. But this is her time zone, as in a sense. And it's just absolutely astounding that she can do that. And of course, we get classes from Manama. We have the double foreigner season. I'm sure Prashant is getting invited here, there, and everywhere to share, as well as some of you. And then we have Madhaba and Jules and you name it. There's so much stuff going on at the moment. But Baba would indicate if I really want to become a self-sovereign, I have to grind my own ingredients, because it's all about me and myself and the world around me, to the extent that my control is natural and even unthinking. Like Baba said today, to become so free from desires that I'm actually free from the knowledge of what desires are. I'm so completely innocent in a way. I don't even know what a desire is. That's how free of desires I've become. And in a way, it's also, I'm so free of the consciousness of defects that I'm not even aware if there's a defect in front of me, because it doesn't register. There's nothing inside me that will resonate with someone's defect. Now I have to create that stage myself. And so Baba says, grind your own ingredients. It's like when you can buy masala ready-made, or you can buy, the coriander and the cumin seeds and the fenugreek and everything and grind it together. And of course it's much tastier because you have made it with your own ingenuity in a way. So in the same way, I have to take all of this stuff that's going on around and all of these great points. And of course, the source is Baba himself. So I can take it directly, which is better. or I can take it indirectly and grind my own ingredients directly. Get by like getting my cumin seeds and coriander seeds directly from the main supplier, who's Baba. Making my dish for my own satisfaction, in a sense of my own churning. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Now, Baba's often said that Dharma, the original Dharma of the soul, is purity and peace. But there's also the Dharma of the original religion here on this earth, how we act with each other. And so these are the two references of purity for the soul. One is the state, the original state, where purity and power are obviously intact. And what happens as we go through the cycle, we come down, and that purity and power actually determines when we're born first. If my purity and power are at the level of taking a birth at the beginning of the golden age, I will. If they're not, I will take a birth later on. And it's actually the purity and the power that not only determine the chronology of birth taking, but it also determines the level of natural rulership, to use, for want of a better word. That means I come into a state where everything, and I guess the word that Baba mentioned today is a little bit difficult for a Western mind to get around. I mean, from our background in the West, the whole thing of worship worthy and worshipper. But what it means is that nature and other souls recognize my value, and therefore they bow, that nature and other souls bow down to that worship worthiness. So I guess the ultimate result of self-sovereignty is to be a sovereign in the future world, of course. But what it means is that I have such control and such over my senses, and such control over my thoughts and feelings and words and so on. Actually, Baba said 4 things today: thoughts, words, actions, including relationships and connections, and dreams. So the sovereignty that I need to have now is related to that. And it's not easy. Just take the question of thoughts. I was thinking about what are signs of impure thoughts, which would indicate a lack of self-sovereignty. And a lack of self-sovereignty now will translate into a lack of sovereignty and worship worthiness later on. And that's what the whole Muli was about.
You just got muted, Ken, somehow.
Somehow.
No, sorry, you just need to unmute.
It's going to mute by itself without anyone touching it.
We have a number of co-hosts, and it's easy to get overexcited. So please, yeah, we only missed 10 seconds.
Okay, sure. Anyway, the whole thing is, it's all connected. So my purity and power, my worship worthiness, and my ability to have enough purity and power to naturally govern the world around me, including my inner world. And that translates into future rulership, and future worship worthiness, because it means that people and nature will recognize my power and purity and bow down to that. And in practical sense, what does it mean? If I think of those two things, and of course, our whole battle, you could say, is to regain that original state. The battle is to regain the purity and power. During the cycle, we do have all of the other qualities in different levels, but what is lost is purity and power. So as we lose the purity and the power, gradually that affects our love, that affects our peace, that affects our happiness. Happiness becomes more limited and focused on physical things. Love becomes attachment and so on. The whole sense of greatness and wonder of the beginning becomes very self-centered and focused on the ego and so on. So we lose purity and power. And as we lose the purity and the power, all of the qualities become actually vices. And vices actually are just repeated actions, if you think about it, just a repeated action. Even Baba said today, a lack of accuracy. An action that lacks accuracy is a vice. I think everyone had lots of pennies dropping when they heard that one. But so at a level of thinking, what does it look like? If I have two things to do, I have to return home. That means I have to unhook myself from so many things and situations and people. I have to become free. I'm sort of hooked up here and there. I have to become free and go home without any thoughts about anything or anything of the cycle, anyone else. So I have to reach that total state of detachment, but also have to be ready to come down in the golden age with a level of purity that sort of is unblemished in a way. And that's the battle. I have to go back to that state. And the battle is against all of the things that prevent me from getting there. And the illusions, the lack of truth, because purity and truth also go together. Truth is also being lost throughout the cycle. And what original truth becomes, the original truths become just a set of illusions. I was reading the other day that a very famous president who just got kicked out in the United States, during his mandate of 4 years, he told 30,000 lies publicly, But every time we go into a state of body consciousness, we go back to living a lie. Of course, it's not true. I'm not a body. I never have been, never will be. I'm not this role also. So every time that we take those things on, we lose our truth. And of course, can you imagine being a self-sovereign without truth? Not possible. So what happens in our thinking? What's an impure thought then? It's basically this general state of illusion, but it also has some specific things, like if I'm thinking about defects, it means that defects have found a place to reside in me. That means I'm cultivating defects, I'm cultivating impurities. And of course, if the field is right, the seeds grow. So that leads to criticism. It's very easy to criticize. If I'm pure, I not only don't see defects, they don't register themselves in me. And therefore, I have absolutely no uncritical attitude towards others and things. I don't notice that something is missing. Even if, as Baba says, even if there's one virtue amongst 100 defects, a pure soul will just see that. In the context, okay, just as Baba does. Baba, I mean, I've had the great fortune to have met Baba personally, I guess around 80 times, more or less. Aviyak Babdada. I remember this because ORC, our Om Shanti Retreat Center, asked me if I could do a video on my experiences with Aviyak Babdada. And so I started to hunt up a lot of the meetings. Of course, we didn't even bother to write down because we thought it would continue forever, those meetings. But I managed to locate 20. Somebody had written down what Baba said. And I was remembering those meetings. I was remembering the experience. I was remembering Baba's drishti, and that's the sort of drishti that I need to have. completely uncritical. He knows everything about it, right? And in front of Bapdada, under his drishti, like personally, once Baba met me for 20 minutes, like giving me all sorts of teachings and orientations for service in this part of the world. And you don't wilt under Baba's drishti. And there's not that feeling. And the fact that he knows all of your junk, he knows all of your stuff. And even then it doesn't matter to him. He just sees this brilliant, shining soul in that context. And his vision, he knows, has to dig it out and bring it out to the exclusion of all other thoughts and uselessness. So this is the sort of drishti that I need to have, a pure soul, a self-sovereign soul will never exaggerate, making something seem bigger than it really is, or even smaller than it really is. A self-sovereign soul with that level of purity of thinking will see the things as they are, in their true light, A pure self-sovereign soul has no partiality. It's not partial. Everything has a context. There's no partial thinking. I take a fact and separate it out from its context and make a big deal of it. Or I take a decision based on my own partialities or preferences. A self-sovereign soul, a pure soul will never do that. One thing I was thinking about too, I was sharing with the souls from Miami about an hour ago, actually. And I said, I was saying that a soul that has purity at this level never would think in terms of should. That you should do this or that should happen or I should do this. No. A pure soul, a self-sovereign soul, think in terms of what's needed rather than what should. I was actually making a pun on the word. We become shudras easier by using the word should too much, right? This is it's a very subtle thing. But imagine if I could allow things to be as they are, then of course everything would just accept me as I am. And that's how a self-sovereign would govern. Even we'll start to practice the sort of sovereignty that we'll have in the golden age where, there's no sense of separation. People don't live inside their own heads in the golden age, separated out from everyone else. It's sort of everything's part of the same vibe. And I have to invoke that feeling. Let me be a deity for a day. Maybe Prashant remembers. The other day I discovered a song by a brother called Aidan Walker. And the song is, I Spent a Day with God. Such a beautiful song in which he sings. He goes through the whole day, like Baba was saying today, the timetable from Amrit Vela to the night. So he sings a song called I Spent a Day with God. And he goes through the whole thing. It's so lovely. So, and that, of course, if I spent a day with God, I would be, what would happen to me? I'd become more and more divine. You can't work this out in your own head without Baba. Baba is the purifier. So I have to allow myself to be purified. I cannot purify myself on the basis of some intellectual understanding of different concepts. In fact, that's also something that may happen, because just because I can string ideas together intelligently does not mean that I've understood them. We understand something means I'm practicing it already. So as I become, look at the description Baba gave today. the sort of the face is shining and the eyes are shining and there's a purity on the lips. It has to have some practical manifestation. And as I become that, and using the language of today's Morley, I become worship worthy. That means I have the qualities that nature and souls recognize as being the highest, and therefore they bow down to it. I remember a very good description of a self-sovereign from an Abhiyak Morley Baba saying, the soul will sort of move and matter and nature will sort of throw petals in that one's path, asking, is there anything you require, Lord, my Lord? You know, so nature is saying, move, go ahead. You need anything? We are here to provide it to you. So if I can start to have that sort of thing happening now, training to be a deity, then definitely my self-sovereignty will translate into being a sovereign. You can't dissociate that. We practice Raja Yoga, as Baba says many times, not Praja Yoga. We're not making efforts to become just part of the kingdom. I actually am not really thinking about becoming Lakshmi Narayan, you know, with all of that fancy dress and jewels and stuff. But definitely I'm interested in having the experience of self-sovereignty now at this time. And of course, if people and nature start to recognize that now, it's a good sign. And I really, if people and nature are recognizing that in me, I will not recognize that they are recognizing me if I'm truly a self-sovereign. That means my purity is to the extent that I'm so innocent that everything would seem natural. I'm not a courageous soul, for example, but people may call me courageous, but I won't have the awareness of being courageous because it's so natural.
So Ken, we have a couple of questions. Would it be possible?
Yeah, now we've got 10 minutes, so go for it. These are just some reflections on today's Morley and the whole topic, okay?
It's really helping. And we were talking about Sita, the soul needs to take a step of courage, and then Ram, God, will be there. But one question which has come, to be a self-sovereign in this, as described, a noisy and busy world can be challenging or is challenging. So in order to become free and to help you on your BK journey, did it help to live in a community with like-minded people living the same lifestyle? Any thoughts on that? And of course, it's not the possibility for everyone. So how to be self-sovereign in this world?
Well, definitely it helps. I mean, ever since, except for the first 3 months of Gyan, I've been living in a center. So that's over 45 years. Living in a center means, in the beginning in Australia, I was there alone in the center, but then we had the Pandab Bhavan next to the center soon after that. So it was a little community. And let me say, since then, practically, like Charlie, I've been living with sisters, which has been an interesting experience. Like, sort of conversations that happen at the dinner table are quite different from what I would imagine. But I mean, it's been very useful. But at the same time, the fact is that I have always, even though both daddies gave me the permission not to work logically because of the wide-ranging responsibility, I've never used that permission because it was so easy to work, and I worked in, you know, quite high level. So often, for weeks at a time, I was in a hotel somewhere doing consulting work. And of course, practicing the principles and so on in that context, right? Often you'd have to go out for dinner with some, high level, the president of the company, let's say, and you'd just be sitting there eating some lettuce and some tomatoes, right? It was like a bit strange. But I found that because I respected my life so much, I respected my discipline so much, people would respect that. In fact, I found that respect has been the greatest of all management tools. Let me say, the more difficult situations that I've had to sort out, it's been dharana that's helped me more than any technical knowledge. But the other thing too is that I've never separated my life into two parts, like my professional life, my Brahmin life. I'm a Brahmin. Wherever I am, I'm still the same Brahmin. I'm still the same person. I don't have to put on any airs. Maybe the clothes changes a bit because I'm at the moment sitting here in my Murli reading clothes. But it's really a question of attitude to live with others. I mean, in all of these years too, I had to visit my folks in Australia several times, and I've had to stay because they were not living near any centre, so I had to stay with them a few days at a time. Of course, it's not my lifestyle, but they respect. If I respect myself, others will respect me. If I don't have that, then it will be difficult. Okay.
Yeah, that's very clear. That was helpful. And we might have time for perhaps squeeze in one more question, if you like. And that was, well, depends how long the story is, but would you kindly share your first meeting with Bapdada?
Yeah, well, I came in again in August 1975, and I was already planning to go back to Australia. I was born in Sydney, and I was planning to go back to help with the new centre that had started there. Brother from London called John Keane had started things, and then he had invited Didi Nemla and Sister Suman, who later on went to Germany, to be there. So I was thinking, let me go back to Sydney and maybe I can give a hand, but I'd been away for 2 years. So I decided to go back to Australia in November 1975, or rather 3 months after I came into Gyan, I was in Madhaban. And just quickly, I'd noticed in London, in that little tiny centre, of course I'd seen Brahma Baba's picture, but I don't remember that there was specifically a Baba's room because the house was very tiny. Didn't seem to have much space. And maybe they used it for their own private meditations, but I don't recall. And then, of course, in the courtyard, there was Baba's room in Pandap Bhavan. And Brahma Baba had left the body just 6 years previously. So everything was still the same as it was when he was alive, you know. So it was so simple. There was one car, there was an old truck from the Second World War. You'd have your meal sitting on the floor. Sleeping accommodation was very, very rudimentary, you know. Baba's room was 1/3 of its present size. They knocked down 2 walls to make it that size. But so I went there one afternoon. I sat, and I had the feeling that Baba was welcoming me. You know, I thought, you look at Brahma Baba and you think that, wait a minute, this is funny. You know, you see some movement in the eyes, and you have to blink. You have to blink a few times. Wait a minute, what's going on? But then I just felt that Baba was welcoming me. You have arrived at your destiny. You have arrived at your destination. The next day was an Avyak Murli. And the whole Murli was about, you have arrived at your destination. Why are you hanging around at the gate? Come in, you know, that sort of Murli. Which type of moth are you? The ones that plunge into the flame or the ones that just circle around? And it was, you know, very, very appropriate to the experience that I had the day before. And then since I was the only foreigner in Madhaban, I was one of the first ones to get there. And I was the only foreigner there. So Baba, they pushed me in front of Baba. It wasn't that I wanted to meet, you know. I felt so unworthy. But then Baba gave long Krishna, asked me, where are you going? And I said, I'm going back to Australia. He said, yes, you will bring a bouquet of souls here from there. And I thought, what's a bouquet of souls? What the hell does that mean? I remember I was only 3 months in Yarn, right? So the next day I went back to the Baba's room in the afternoon, and I was sitting there, not many people. And I had the feeling that Baba was saying, yes, I will go with you. I'll be always present if you want. Just confirming what he said in the Murli the day before. So it was very, very sort of personal connection. And then I arrived in Australia, started to help. The centre closed after about 3 weeks. Everyone left. John came, went back to London. Sister Suma went to Germany, and Didi Nemlo's visa ran out. So then I remembered, Baba, you are present with me. The nearest centre then was only in Singapore, 6,000 kilometres away. And then I wrote to Daddy Prakash Mani, I'm going to start a centre. Okay, I can't live, I'm going to start one. So I did. And Baba was and then after 1 year of service, I went back to Madhvana with a bouquet of 16 Brahmins. So that's how it was, the first meeting, like a blessing. Okay.
It was so lovely to hear your description and this bouquet of souls. I'm sort of living that experience with this, so many cultural and just a different world. So it was really, really nice. So thank you. I know we've come to time. We've all thoroughly enjoyed to hear from you, and maybe encouragement if you want to come into camera and give a wave. I don't know if you've got the ability to see the screen, Ken, with the bouquet who is here today.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Hello. I'm recognizing a few here and there. Hello. Nazanin, how are you? Good. Good to see you. Ramesh. Of course. Okay, yeah, sure. I'm recognizing lots of faces. So very good.
It's very nice.
And then, of course, my old and dear brother, Prashant.
You can try your Spanish. There are many here who understand Spanish.
Sí, hay mucha gente que habla español y están asistiendo. Sí, ¿verdad? Pueden indicar con el pulgar. Ah, wow. Ok, Enrique, Teresa, ok. Maravilla. Roberta, ok. Oh, Shanti. Oh, mucha gente. There's a lot of people. Okay. Okay, everyone. Lovely to be with you. So I'll leave you to have your program. Let's have just 1 minute of Baba's remembrance, okay, together.
Yeah, very nice.
So Om Shanti, everyone. Great initiative.
So great appreciation. Thank you so much. We will finish with a recorded song. People are asking. So we have one recording. You can sing live if you want, but we have the recording.
Okay.
Just wanted to let everyone know, well, first of all, I want to give a big thanks to the translators and also to the Incognito co-hosting team. We'll be emailing everyone the True Victory Retreat, which is 19th to 21st of February, so in 4 weeks' time. Look out in your junk box because sometimes things end up there. So in the next couple of days, you should get details. and also to join the mailing list for the monthly retreats. The link will be sent to you and on the screen shortly. So we'll finish with a song, and we'll meet again soon. And as Ken was saying, grinding our own ingredients and putting things into practice with the energy of fun and lightness. So thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining.
Do you have the feeling you've been here before? Looking back on all the steps you've taken to this door. Have you tasted such a love on the rocky road to search? Now the fruit is ripe to pick, it takes away the hurt. Do you have the feeling you now have the key? Put it in, open up to your eternity. Have you met such a friend who never sees your wrongs? Smiles and blesses endlessly as he sings you all his songs. Have you heard such a tale that fills your mind with gems? A wealth so limitless, it never seems to end.